She collapsed in the snow with her abuser's child growing inside her, or so everyone thought. When the alpha caught her broken body, he saw the bruises first, then the pregnancy, then something that made his wolf roar with recognition. But the man hunting her across state lines had pack law on his side, falsified documents, and a claim that could force her back into his hands. Now, with a challenge fight to the death looming and a mate bond that formed too late to save her, Elena must make an impossible choice: let Dominic die protecting her, or surrender to the monster who swore she'd never escape. Will Elena's past destroy the future she's fighting for? Can a broken rogue become the Luna a pack needs? And when the truth about her baby's father comes to light in front of the entire pack council, will it save her or condemn them both? Drop a comment and tell me, would you fight for a love that defied every law, or would you run to protect the ones you love? And don't forget to subscribe, because this story of survival, second chances, and a love worth dying for is just beginning. The forest had no mercy for the dying. Elena Morrison stumbled through snow that reached past her ankles, each breath a knife to her lungs, each step a gamble her legs might not win. The trees closed in around her like prison bars, endless, identical, mocking. Her wolf, once a constant presence humming beneath her skin, had gone silent 3 days ago. Or was it 4? Time blurred when you were starving. Just a little further, just past the ridge, then you can rest. The lie tasted bitter, but it kept her moving. There was no rest for rogues, no sanctuary for wolves without a pack, and certainly no mercy for a pregnant woman stupid enough to run from her mate. Her hand curved protectively over the small swell of her belly, hidden beneath the torn coat she'd stolen from a gas station dumpster 2 weeks ago. 4 months along, and the baby was the only reason she was still breathing, the only reason she hadn't shifted and run until her heart gave out, hadn't let Marcus catch her that first night when his howl had echoed through the darkness, promising violence wrapped in the language of love. The cramping started again, a dull throb low in her abdomen that made her bite her lip hard enough to taste copper. Not now, please, not now. A branch cracked beneath her boot, and she went down hard on one knee. Pain exploded up her thigh. The world tilted sideways, trees spinning in a nauseating kaleidoscope of white and black and endless cold. She'd eaten 4 berries yesterday, or maybe that was the day before. The rabbit she'd tried to catch had been faster than her weakened reflexes, and the stream water sat heavy and useless in her empty stomach. Get up, or he'll find you. But her body had finally reached its limit. Her legs trembled, refusing the command. Her vision grayed at the edges, and somewhere in the dying corners of her mind, she registered a scent. Thick, powerful, unmistakably alpha. Terror spiked through her exhaustion. She'd crossed a border, pack territory. No, she whispered, the word lost in the wind. No, please. Her legs gave out. She pitched forward, one hand still cradling her belly, the other reaching out uselessly for the ground that rushed up to meet her. In the half-second of freefall, Elena's only thought was an apology to the child she'd tried so desperately to save. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She never hit the ground. Strong arms caught her mid-collapse, one hand beneath her shoulders, the other sliding under her knees with a speed and strength that defied human capability. The world stopped spinning. Elena's eyes fluttered open, struggling to focus on the face above her. Dark hair, longer than fashion dictated, framed a face carved from granite and shadow. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, pale against tan skin. But it was his eyes that locked her breath in her chest, burning gold, lit from within by something primal and ancient and utterly inhuman. Alpha. The word echoed through her dying wolf's consciousness, part warning, part recognition, part something she didn't have the strength to name. Protect. The word rumbled from his chest, rough and raw, a command spoken not to her, but to the wolf she could sense prowling beneath his skin. Elena tried to pull away, tried to find the energy to run, but her body had nothing left. Her coat had fallen open during the catch, and she watched with detached horror as his gaze traveled down from her face to her throat, where she knew Marcus's fingerprints still marked her skin in fading yellow and purple. Lower, to her collarbone, where a handprint-shaped bruise disappeared beneath her shirt. Lower still, to the undeniable curve of her pregnancy. His eyes flared brighter, gold bleeding into the whites, and the air around them thickened with power that made her ears ring. "Who did this to you?" His voice was controlled, each word measured and deliberate, but underneath ran a current of barely leashed violence that made her wolf whimper in the back of her mind. He shifted his grip, holding her more securely against his chest, and added the question that would change everything. "And whose child are you protecting?" Elena's vision tunneled. She tried to answer, tried to explain, but the darkness that had been circling finally closed in. The last thing she registered before consciousness slipped away was the steady thunder of his heartbeat beneath her ear, and the strange, impossible sense that, for the first time in months, she might not die today. When Elena woke, she thought she'd died and somehow ended up in the wrong afterlife. The bed beneath her was obscenely soft, nothing like the frozen ground or the concrete of the overpass where she'd sheltered from rain. Silk sheets, actual silk, whispered against her skin. Warmth surrounded her, radiating from everywhere at once, and for a confused moment she wondered if this was what being devoured felt like. Comfortable, gentle, wrong. Her eyes snapped open. The room was enormous, decorated in shades of deep charcoal and cream, with floor-to-ceiling windows that revealed a forest view dusted in twilight. A fireplace crackled in one corner. Everything screamed wealth, power, permanence. Everything she'd learned to fear. "You're awake." The voice came from the doorway. Elena's head whipped around fast enough to make her dizzy. The man from the forest stood there, backlit by the hallway, and without the delirium of near death, she could see him clearly. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark jeans and a fitted black Henley that did nothing to disguise the predator underneath. His eyes were brown now, human, but she could still see the gold lurking in their depths. She scrambled backward instinctively, her hand flying to her belly. Still there. Still alive. The relief was dizzying. "Easy." He raised both hands, palms out, and took one careful step into the room. "You're safe here. You're in my home, Blackwood Territory." I didn't mean to trespass." The words came out hoarse, her throat scraped raw. "I didn't know. I'll leave. You'll do nothing until Dr. Chen examines you." He moved to the side, and Elena saw another woman enter, petite, Asian, wearing scrubs and carrying a medical bag that looked absurdly professional for whatever pack healer situation Elena had stumbled into. "I'm Sarah Chen," the woman said, her voice warm but no nonsense. "I'm the pack physician. I need to check you and your baby if that's all right." It wasn't all right. None of this was all right. But Elena's baby gave a weak flutter against her palm, and the cramping that had terrified her in the forest whispered a warning she couldn't ignore. She nodded. The examination was thorough and humiliating and gentle in a way that made Elena's eyes burn. Dr. Chen worked in silence, checking vitals, palpating her belly, listening with a Doppler that picked up the rapid flutter of a heartbeat that made Elena's own heart stutter with relief. "Severe malnutrition," Dr. Chen said finally, not looking at Elena but at the man still standing by the door like a sentinel. "Dehydration, evidence of prolonged physical trauma, healed and healing fractures to the ribs, extensive bruising in various stages. The baby's heartbeat is weak but stable. She needs rest, food, and safety, or she'll lose this child within the week." The clinical words hit like physical blows. Elena closed her eyes, waiting for the inevitable dismissal, the order to leave pack territory, "Then she'll have all three," the Alpha's voice cut through her spiral. "Prepare one of the guest suites on this floor. I want a meal sent up within the hour." And Sarah, not a word outside this room until I understand what we're dealing with." Elena's eyes flew open. Dr. Chen nodded and left, closing the door behind her with a soft click. The Alpha approached slowly. Each step measured until he stood at the foot of the bed. His wolf's eyes had returned, burning gold in the firelight, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of an Alpha command that vibrated through her bones. "I am Dominic Hale, Alpha of Blackwood Pack. You collapsed on my territory, injured and pregnant, and Pack law is clear. You are now under my protection until you are strong enough to make your own choices." He paused, his gaze locked on hers with an intensity that made it impossible to look away. "No one will touch you here, no one will hurt you here, and whoever put those marks on your skin will answer to me if they try." The promise hung in the air between them, absolute and terrifying and impossibly, desperately tempting. Elena's wolf stirred for the first time in days, a weak pulse of recognition that whispered a single dangerous word: safe. But Elena had learned the hard way that safety was a lie men told before they became monsters. Still, when Dominic Hale asked her name, she heard herself whisper, "Elena Morrison," and watched something flicker across his face: recognition, determination, and a shadow of old pain that looked hauntingly familiar. "Well, Elena Morrison," he said quietly, his Alpha power banking to something almost gentle. "Welcome to Blackwood." And despite every instinct screaming that she should run, Elena felt the first crack in the armor she'd built around her heart. Elena had been in the guest suite for 3 days before Dominic told her about his sister. He came each evening, a routine she'd begun to expect despite herself. He'd knock, always knock, never just enter, and ask how she was feeling. She'd give minimal answers. He'd nod, linger for a moment as though wrestling with words he couldn't find, then leave. It was awkward and formal and somehow comforting in its predictability. On the 3rd night, he didn't leave. "I had a sister," he said instead, standing by the window with his back to her, silhouetted against the darkening forest. "Cassidy. She was 2 years younger than me, and she had this laugh that could fill a room." His hands curled into fists at his sides. "She met her mate when she was 23. We all thought he was perfect for her. Charming, attentive, from a good pack." Elena's breath caught. She knew where this story was going. She'd lived a version of it. The first time she showed up with bruises, she said she'd fallen during training. Dominic's voice had gone flat, emotionless in the way of people holding back an ocean of feeling. The second time, she said she'd been clumsy. By the 3rd time, she stopped making excuses. She just stopped coming around. He turned then, and the raw pain in his eyes made Elena's chest ache. "I found her 6 months later, at the bottom of a ravine on the edge of our territory. She'd been running, trying to escape." His jaw clenched. "I was too late. I was always too fucking late." The silence stretched between them, heavy with shared understanding and wounds that would never fully heal. "That's why," Elena whispered. It wasn't a question. "That's why I couldn't leave you in that snow." He moved closer, careful not to crowd her, and crouched beside the bed so they were eye level. "That's why you're under my protection, Elena Morrison. Not because of pack law or obligation. Because I won't fail again." Something cracked in Elena's chest, a fissure in the wall she'd built around herself. For the first time since she'd fled Marcus, she felt the dangerous stirring of hope. "Just until the baby is stronger," she heard herself say. "Then I'll figure something out." Dominic's expression softened. "Just until the baby is stronger," he agreed, though they both knew it was a lie that bought her time to heal. The days began to blur into something almost resembling normalcy. Meals arrived 3 times daily, prepared by the pack's kitchen, real food, hot and plentiful, the kind Elena had forgotten existed. Jenna, Dominic's enforcer, started joining her for lunch. She was tall, muscular, with short-cropped dark hair and a laugh that reminded Elena painfully of the friendships she'd lost when Marcus isolated her. "Physical therapy starts tomorrow," Jenna announced one afternoon, stealing a roll from Elena's plate. "Dr. Chen says you need to rebuild your strength. I volunteered to be your trainer." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to." Jenna's expression turned serious. "I want to. Besides, the Luna roll requires stamina, and you're going to need—" She stopped abruptly, as though realizing she'd said too much. Elena didn't ask what she meant. She wasn't ready for that conversation. The physical therapy was gentle at first: stretches, short walks through the hallways, exercises that made her muscles burn in ways that felt productive rather than destructive. Her wolf began to wake in increments, a distant presence growing stronger with each meal, each night of uninterrupted sleep. But the nightmares were worse. They came in the darkest hours, vivid and suffocating. Marcus's voice in her ear, his hands around her throat, the promise that she could never truly escape. She'd wake gasping, convinced she could smell his scent, hear his footsteps in the hall. On the 8th night, the nightmare was different, more real, more visceral. In the dream, Marcus found her. He dragged her from the safety of Blackwood, his grip iron around her wrist, and when she screamed for help, no one came. Dominic stood at the edge of the forest, watching, and did nothing as Marcus smiled and whispered, "Did you really think an alpha like him would fight for a worthless rogue?" Elena woke screaming. The door burst open before the sound fully left her throat. Dominic stormed in, shirtless and wild-eyed, his wolf so close to the surface that his eyes blazed gold in the darkness. He scanned the room with predatory intensity before his gaze locked on her. "Elena." Her name was a command and a question. She couldn't stop shaking, couldn't breathe through the phantom pressure on her throat. "He'll find me," she gasped, the words tumbling out in a broken rush. "He always said he'd track me to the ends of the earth, that I belonged to him. And when he does, when he finds me here—" Dominic crossed the room in 2 strides and dropped to his knees beside the bed. He didn't touch her, but his presence was a solid wall between her and the nightmare. "Look at me." When she did, his eyes were pure alpha, burning with power that made the air hum. "If your ex-mate comes for you, he will have to go through me." The words resonated with the weight of an alpha promise, the kind that bound wolf to oath. "Through my beta, through my enforcers, through every single wolf in this pack who has sworn to protect what's mine. I'm not—" "You're under my protection. That makes you mine to defend." His voice gentled slightly, though the fierce promise remained. "I failed my sister. I won't fail you." Elena's breath hitched. In the dim light, with his wolf so close to the surface and his body still positioned like a shield between her and the door, Dominic Hale looked less like an alpha and more like a man carrying the weight of old ghosts. "Why are you sleeping in the hall?" she whispered. He didn't look away. "My wolf won't leave. He doesn't trust that you're safe unless he can hear your heartbeat." It should have terrified her, this claim of protection from a man she barely knew. Instead, for the first time since she'd fled into the winter forest, Elena felt the tight knot of fear in her chest begin to loosen. "Thank you," she said quietly. Dominic nodded once, then rose to his feet. He moved to the door but paused at the threshold. "Get some rest, Elena. You're safe here. I promise." And as the door clicked shut and she heard him settle back into his position in the hallway, Elena realized with startling clarity that she was beginning to believe him. The pack gathering happened on a Saturday afternoon, unplanned and casual in a way that made Elena's stomach twist with anxiety. Jenna had convinced her to leave the Alpha House, promising it was just a barbecue. Nothing formal, but Elena knew better. Every eye would be on the rogue the Alpha had claimed, judging whether she was worth the protection. She almost turned back 3 times on the walk to the communal grounds. "Breathe," Jenna murmured beside her. "They're going to love you, and if they don't, I'll kick their asses." The gathering was sprawling and chaotic, pack members clustered around picnic tables and a massive stone fire pit. Children chased each other through the grass, their laughter sharp and joyful. The scent of grilling meat made Elena's mouth water despite her nerves. Dominic found her within moments, materializing at her side as though he'd been tracking her approach. "You came." "Jenna didn't give me much choice." His lips quirked. "She's persuasive." He placed a hand on the small of her back, a gesture that was both protective and possessive, and guided her forward. "Come on, let me introduce you." The pack was not what she expected. The elders were warm and welcoming, their weathered faces creasing with smiles as they clasped her hand. The families treated her with curiosity rather than hostility, and the young wolves, teenagers who should have been the most judgmental, simply accepted her presence as though rogues joined their pack every day. "Blackwood doesn't turn away those who need sanctuary," an older woman named Margaret explained, Dominic's mother and the former Luna. Her eyes were kind but sharp, assessing. "It's our code. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. That includes you, dear." Elena felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest, something dangerously close to belonging. By the time the sun began to set, she'd learned the names of at least 20 pack members, had been invited to a women's circle by 3 different mothers, and had watched Dominic crouch down to let a 5-year-old girl braid wildflowers into his hair with a patience that made Elena's heart stutter. "You're good with them," she said later, when the crowd had thinned and they walked back toward the Alpha House under a sky streaked with purple and gold. "Kids are honest. They don't play political games." He reached up to touch the slightly crushed flowers still tangled in his hair, then seemed to think better of removing them. "They just want to be safe and loved." "Is that what you want?" The question slipped out before Elena could stop it. Dominic's step faltered, and when he looked at her, something raw and unguarded flickered across his face. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think it is." The rhythm they fell into after that was natural, almost inevitable. Morning walks became routine, Dominic pointing out the territorial markers and favorite pack gathering spots, while Elena breathed in the forest air and felt her wolf stretch and wake. Evening meals shifted from formal obligations to easy conversations, Dominic asking about her past and her dreams, while she slowly, carefully, let him see the woman she'd been before Marcus. "I used to paint," she admitted one night, curled in an armchair in his study while he worked through pack paperwork. "Landscapes, mostly. I loved the way light changed everything. The same forest could look completely different at dawn versus dusk." Dominic looked up from his desk, interest sharp in his gaze. "Past tense?" "Marcus said it was a waste of time, that I should focus on—" She stopped, the familiar shame rising. "On being what he wanted you to be." Dominic's voice had gone cold. He set down his pen and leaned back. "If you want to paint again, there's a room on the 3rd floor with good light. It's yours." Just like that. No conditions, no expectations, just the casual offering of a space to reclaim a piece of herself. Elena's wolf stirred, stronger now, and whispered something that sounded dangerously like mate. She ignored it. She had to. The full moon rose on her 4th week at Blackwood, fat and silver and calling to every wolf in the territory. Elena stood on the balcony of the Alpha House, watching the pack gather below for the run. Her wolf paced restlessly, wanting to join, but Dr. Mo Chen had been clear. No shifting until after the baby came. The transformation was too taxing, too risky. The pack shifted in a wave of power that rolled across the grounds like thunder. Wolves of every size and color emerged, from Jenna's sleek gray form to the russet and black patterns of the younger wolves. And then Dominic shifted, and Elena's breath caught. His wolf was massive, black as midnight with those same burning gold eyes. He was clearly alpha in every line of his body, the way the other wolves deferred, the power that radiated from him like heat. The pack ran, disappearing into the forest in a surge of movement and wild joy. Dominic's wolf didn't follow. He stood at the edge of the tree line for a long moment, then turned and walked back across the grounds. He sat directly beneath her balcony, head tilted up, golden eyes locked on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. Elena's wolf surged to the surface, pressing against her skin with a need she'd never felt before. Not pain, not the desperate scramble to shift, but recognition. A pull that went bone deep and soul true. "Mate," her wolf said again, certain and absolute. "No," Elena whispered, but her hand was already pressed against her chest, against the ache that had bloomed there. "It's not... we can't..." Dominic's wolf didn't move, just watched her with ancient, knowing eyes. The spell broke when he finally shifted back, rising to his feet in human form, gloriously naked and utterly unself-conscious in the moonlight. He pulled on the clothes he'd left at the forest edge and disappeared into the house. Elena was still on the balcony, trembling and confused, when her door opened. "Elena." Dominic stood in the doorway, hair still wild from the shift, eyes still carrying traces of gold. "We need to talk about what's happening between us." "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." He crossed the space between them slowly, giving her time to run, to refuse. "My wolf recognized you that first day. I thought it was just protection instinct, but it's not. It's..." "Don't." Her voice cracked. "Please, don't say it." "A mate bond." He said it anyway, the words falling between them like stones. "I think you're my true mate, Elena, and I think you feel it too." She did. God help her, she did. The pull, the recognition, the way her wolf settled in his presence, it all made terrible, wonderful sense. "I can't." Tears burned her eyes. "I can't trust this. I can't trust..." "Me?" Dominic stopped just inches away. "Or yourself?" The question hit like a blade. Elena looked up at him, at this alpha who'd given her sanctuary and safety and asked for nothing in return, and felt the walls she'd built begin to crumble. "Both," she whispered. Dominic raised one hand, slow and careful, and cupped her face. His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "Then we go slow as you need. But Elena, I need you to know that I'm not him. I will never be him." The kiss happened in the space between one breath and the next. Elena wasn't sure who moved first, but suddenly his mouth was on hers, gentle and fierce, and tasting like moonlight and promise. Her wolf sang with recognition, and for the first time since Marcus, Elena let herself feel without fear. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. "Slow," he murmured. "Slow," Elena agreed, even as her heart raced and her wolf purred with satisfaction. But they both knew the truth. Whatever this was between them, mate bond or something else entirely, there would be no going back. Elena was sketching in the third-floor art room when Jenna burst through the door, her face carved from stone and fury. "He found you." No preamble, no softening, just the truth, delivered like a knife. The charcoal snapped in Elena's fingers. "Marcus." "Worse." Jenna crossed the room and gripped Elena's shoulders, forcing eye contact. "He's invoked the right of reclaim with the Regional Pack Council. He's got documentation claiming you as his registered mate and the baby as his blood heir. There's going to be a hearing." The room tilted. Elena's hand flew to her belly, now round and obvious at nearly 6 months. "He can't. I left. I ran." Pack law doesn't care about running. Without a formal rejection or a mate bond to someone else, his claim still has legal weight. Jenna's jaw clenched. "Dominic's already called in our lawyer. We're going to fight this." Elena barely made it to the bathroom before she vomited. The next 3 days were a blur of preparation that felt more like psychological warfare. Richard Moss, Blackwood's pack lawyer, was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a mind like a steel trap. He asked questions that flayed Elena open: dates, specific incidents, witnesses to the abuse, medical records she didn't have because Marcus had never let her go to the doctor alone. "He'll bring witnesses," Richard warned during one particularly brutal prep session. "They'll lie. They'll say you were unstable, dramatic, that the relationship was consensual and loving. You need to be ready for that." Elena wanted to run, wanted to shift and disappear into the forest and never stop running. But Dominic sat beside her through every session, a silent anchor, and when her voice failed, his hand would find hers beneath the table and squeeze. "You're stronger than you think," he murmured one night after Richard had finally left. "Stronger than he ever let you believe." The hearing took place in Blackwood's council hall, a massive room with vaulted ceilings and rows of wooden benches that reminded Elena sickeningly of a courtroom. The regional pack council sat at the head table, 3 alphas from neighboring territories, their expressions neutral and unreadable. And then Marcus walked in. He looked exactly as she remembered: sandy brown hair, average height, the kind of face that strangers would call handsome. Charming smile, confident stride, wearing a suit like he was attending a business meeting rather than fighting for ownership of a woman who'd fled his violence. Their eyes met across the room, and his smile widened. Elena's wolf snarled, fully awake and furious. The hearing began with Marcus's testimony, delivered in a smooth, reasonable voice that made Elena's skin crawl. He painted a picture of a troubled relationship, a woman who was unstable and prone to dramatics, a mate bond that had been sacred until she'd abandoned him while pregnant with his child. "I only want what's mine," Marcus said, looking directly at the council with earnest eyes. "My mate and my son." "Daughter," Elena said, her voice cutting through the room before she could stop herself. "The baby's a girl, and she's not yours." Marcus's mask slipped for just a fraction of a second, rage flashing across his features before the charm returned. Then it was Elena's turn. Richard guided her through the testimony, and Elena forced herself to speak the truth she'd hidden for so long. The first time Marcus hit her, claiming she'd embarrassed him at a pack function. The isolation from her family and friends. The escalating violence, the control, the night she'd tried to leave, and he'd put his hands around her throat and told her she'd die before she left him. "He said I was nothing without him," Elena said, her voice steadier than she felt. "That no pack would take a rogue, that I deserved everything he did because I wasn't strong enough, wasn't good enough, wasn't—" Her voice broke. Dominic's presence at the back of the room was a tangible thing, his alpha power a warm pressure against her spine. She lifted her chin and continued. "But I am strong enough to run, strong enough to protect my daughter, and strong enough to tell the truth." Marcus's witnesses were everything Richard had predicted: wolves from his pack who claimed Elena had been the aggressor, that Marcus was a devoted mate driven to desperation by her instability. The lies piled up like corpses, and Elena felt her hope dying with each false testimony. Then Marcus played his final card. "With respect to the council," his lawyer said smoothly, "Ms. Morrison bears no mate bond mark. Pack law is clear. Without a completed bond to another wolf, Alpha Vaughn's prior claim as her registered mate holds precedence. The pregnancy only strengthens his right to reclaim what is his." The head counselor, an older alpha named Garrett, turned to Dominic. "Alpha Hale, what is the nature of your relationship with Ms. Morrison?" Dominic stood, and every wolf in the room felt the weight of his power. "She is under my protection as a member of my pack, and she is my intended mate." "Intended is not bonded," Marcus's lawyer countered. "The law requires—" "I am aware of what the law requires." Dominic's voice could have cut glass. "The mate bond is forming. It takes time for true mates to complete—" "Convenient timing," Marcus interrupted, his mask fully dropped now, contempt dripping from every word. "You hide behind pack law and claim mate bonds that don't exist. She's mine. The child is mine. And I'm invoking my right to reclaim both." The council deliberated for less than 10 minutes. Without a completed mate bond or formal rejection ritual, Alpha Vaughn's claim has legal standing, Garrett announced. However, Alpha Hale, you have the right to formal challenge. If you wish to maintain protection over Miss Morrison, you must either complete the mate bond before this council within 7 days or accept a challenge fight for the right to claim her. Elena's world narrowed to a pinpoint. 7 days. A fight to the death. All because she dared to run. The hearing ended in chaos, wolves from both sides arguing and posturing. Elena pushed through the crowd, desperate for air, and made it to the hallway before a hand grabbed her arm. Marcus spun her around, his grip bruising even through her sweater. Up close, she could see the rage simmering beneath his charm. "Did you really think you could run from me?" His voice was low, meant only for her ears. That an alpha like Dominic Hale would fight for a broken rogue and a bastard child? He's using you, Elena. Playing hero until he gets bored. And when this is over, when he realizes you're not worth dying for, you'll come crawling back to me just like I always knew you would. Something snapped inside Elena. Not broke, strengthened, crystallized into diamond-hard certainty. Her wolf surged forward, and for the first time since she'd fled, Elena let it. Power flooded her veins, her eyes flashing with inner light as she wrenched her arm free and stepped into Marcus's space. "I'll die first," she growled, her voice layered with her wolf's fury. "I'll die before I let you touch me again. Before I let you anywhere near my daughter. And if you think Dominic is using me, you understand nothing about true mates or the bonds that matter." Marcus stumbled back, shock and fear flickering across his face as he finally saw what he'd never allowed himself to recognize. Elena was not prey anymore. 7 days, she said quietly, her wolf retreating but still humming beneath her skin. That's all you have left before you lose everything. She turned and walked away, leaving Marcus standing alone in the hallway, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Elena Morrison felt like a Luna. Elena was alone in the medical center when Marcus made his move. Dr. Chen had stepped out to retrieve test results, leaving Elena in the examination room with nothing but the steady beep of the fetal heart monitor and the false security of being deep in Blackwood Territory. She was adjusting her shirt, preparing to leave, when the door burst open. Marcus stood in the doorway, wild-eyed and reeking of desperation. "You're coming with me, now!" Elena's scream tore through the building. She didn't remember moving, only that suddenly she was behind the examination table, one hand protecting her belly, the other reaching for anything she could use as a weapon. Marcus lunged, faster than she expected, his hand catching her wrist. "You embarrassed me in front of the council," he snarled, dragging her toward the door. "Made me look weak. You're going to fix this." The window exploded inward as Jenna crashed through in wolf form, glass spraying like deadly rain. She landed between Elena and Marcus, teeth bared, a growl rumbling from her chest that promised violence. Marcus released Elena and stumbled backward, but pack warriors were already pouring through the door, 5 wolves in human form, flanking him, cutting off escape. "You violated pack territory," Jenna said, shifting back to human, naked and utterly unconcerned as she advanced on Marcus. "Attempted kidnapping of a pack member under alpha protection. That's a death sentence violation." Marcus's face went white. "I have rights. The council gave you 7 days for a formal challenge." Dominic's voice cut through the chaos like a blade as he appeared in the doorway, his alpha power so thick in the air it made Elena's knees weak. His eyes were pure gold, his wolf barely contained beneath his skin. "You just forfeited those rights. I'm invoking immediate challenge, tonight, to the death." The words fell like an executioner's axe. Marcus was dragged away, still protesting, still claiming rights he'd obliterated the moment he'd touched Elena. Dominic crossed to her in 3 strides, his hands gentle as they cupped her face, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did he—" "I'm fine." The baby's fine. Elena gripped his wrists, feeling his pulse hammering beneath her fingers. Dominic, you can't. Challenge fights are the only way to end this permanently. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. If I win, his claim dies with him. You'll be free. And if you lose? The words scraped her throat raw. Dominic's expression softened. I won't. But Elena had seen challenge fights. Had heard the stories of alphas who'd died in the circle, of mates left broken and alone. She wouldn't let Dominic face Marcus without standing beside him. Then I'm coming with you, she said. My wolf, I need to let her surface. Fully. Elena, no. Dominic's hands tightened on her face. You're 6 months pregnant. Bringing your wolf forward could trigger early labor, could hurt. I know the risks. She covered his hands with hers. But this is my fight too. Marcus won't stop until one of us is dead, and if you're risking everything for me, then I stand with you, as your mate. The last word hung between them, an acknowledgement of what they'd both been dancing around. Dominic's eyes flashed, and Elena felt the mate bond pulse between them, stronger than ever. Together, then, he whispered. The challenge took place at sunset in Blackwood's ceremonial grounds, a massive clearing ringed with ancient stones that had witnessed 100 years of pack justice. Wolves gathered in the hundreds. Blackwood members, the regional council, representatives from every pack in the northern territories. This wasn't just a challenge. This was a spectacle. Elena stood at the edge of the circle beside Jenna, her wolf pacing beneath her skin, desperate to break free. Dr. Chen had positioned herself nearby with a medical kit, her expression grim. If you feel anything, contractions, pain, anything, you tell me immediately, she'd ordered. Elena nodded, but her attention was locked on the center of the circle where Dominic stood, shirtless and powerful, his wolf's presence making the air shimmer. Across from him, Marcus stripped off his shirt, revealing a fighter's build and scars that told their own story of violence. Garrett, the head counselor, raised his hand. This is a formal alpha challenge, invoked by violation of pack territory and attempted kidnapping. The fight continues until submission or death. The victor's claim is absolute and final. He looked between them. Begin. Marcus attacked first, shifting mid-leap into a tawny wolf that launched at Dominic's throat. Dominic shifted in a blur of power, his massive black wolf meeting Marcus mid-air with a collision that shook the ground. The fight was brutality incarnate, teeth and claws and blood spraying across the grass. Marcus fought like a cornered animal, desperate, vicious, willing to sacrifice everything for a killing blow. Dominic fought like an alpha, calculated, dominant, every move designed to end the threat while minimizing his own risk. But Marcus was faster than Elena had expected, and cunning. He feinted left and went right, his teeth finding Dominic's shoulder, tearing deep. Dominic's wolf yelped, and Elena felt the pain echo through the bond. Her wolf roared. Elena tried to hold her back, tried to remember Dr. Chen's warnings, but the sight of Dominic's blood, her mate's blood, shattered every restraint. Her wolf surged forward and Elena let her come. She didn't shift, couldn't shift without endangering her daughter. But her wolf's power erupted from her skin like a supernova, flooding the ceremonial grounds with pure, undeniable energy. Every wolf present felt it, the unmistakable signature of a mate bond activating. Elena's hand flew to her chest, where the bond burned like starfire. She could feel Dominic through it, his pain, his determination, his absolute certainty that he would not fail her. And she sent back everything she had, her trust, her strength, her choice. In the center of the circle, Dominic's wolf blazed with renewed power. He caught Marcus by the throat and slammed him to the ground, pinning him with alpha dominance that would not be denied. Elena's wolf reached through the bond and marked Dominic, a visible line of glowing energy that wrapped around his throat like a collar of light, the mate bond made manifest, witnessed by hundreds. The crowd erupted in shocked voices. Mate bonds were rare, and to see one form mid-challenge was unheard of. Garrett's voice cut through the chaos. The mate bond is witnessed and confirmed. Alpha Vaughn's claim is nullified. Marcus struggled beneath Dominic's weight, his wolf's eyes wide with understanding and rage. He'd lost. Everything. Completely. Dominic's jaws tightened, and for a moment Elena thought he would kill Marcus anyway. But then he released him, stepping back as Marcus shifted to human form, bloody and broken on the ground. "You're exiled," Dominic said, his voice carrying across the grounds. "Stripped of pack status. If you ever step foot in these territories again, if you ever come near Elena or our child, I will finish what I started here. Are we clear?" Marcus said nothing, but the defeat in his eyes was answer enough. Pack warriors dragged him away, and Elena collapsed to her knees, the adrenaline finally crashing. Dominic was at her side in seconds, human again, pulling her against his chest. "I've got you," he murmured. "It's over. You're safe." Elena pressed her face into his shoulder and let herself break apart, knowing he would hold the pieces together until she could stand on her own again. They'd won. Together. And Marcus Vaughn would never touch her again. Dominic found Elena in the art room 3 days after the challenge, standing before a half-finished canvas that captured the forest at dawn, all silver light and shadow. Her hand rested on her belly, which had dropped noticeably in the past week, and she looked more at peace than he'd ever seen her. "I have a question to ask you," he said from the doorway. Elena turned, a smile already forming. "Another one? You've been asking me questions for weeks. What I want for breakfast, how I'm feeling, whether I prefer the blue curtains or the gray. This one's different." He crossed the room and took her paint-stained hands in his. "The mate bond is complete. Everyone witnessed it. Pack law recognizes you as mine, and me as yours. But I need you to know something, Elena. I don't want you because Pack law says you're mine. I want you because my wolf and my heart recognized you the moment I caught you in that snow. Because you're fierce and strong and you make me believe in second chances." He paused, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "I want you to choose this. Choose me. Not because you have to, but because you want to." Elena's eyes burned. "Dominic, will you accept the mate bond publicly? Let me claim you before the pack, not as a rescued rogue, but as my equal, as my Luna?" The answer came without hesitation. "Yes." The ceremony took place under the full moon, in the same ceremonial grounds where Dominic had fought for her freedom. But this time, the space was transformed, lit by hundreds of candles, decorated with winter flowers and pine boughs, filled with every member of Blackwood Pack dressed in their finest. Elena wore a dress of deep forest green that Margaret had insisted on, her hair loose and crowned with a wreath of white blossoms. Dominic stood at the center of the circle in traditional ceremonial garb, waiting. Garrett officiated, his voice carrying across the grounds. "A mate bond is sacred, a gift from the moon herself. Tonight, we witness not just the joining of two wolves, but the choice to stand together as equals, as partners, as one." The vows were simple but weighted with meaning. Dominic promised to protect, to cherish, to stand beside her in strength and in vulnerability. Elena promised the same, her voice steady, her wolf singing with joy beneath her skin. Then came the marking. Dominic's eyes flashed gold as he lowered his mouth to the curve of Elena's throat, where neck met shoulder. The bite was quick and precise, the traditional place for a mate's mark. Elena gasped as the bond flared between them, cementing what had already been forming for months. When it was her turn, her wolf guided her, and she marked him in the same place, a claim that would be visible to every wolf they met. "Mine," her wolf purred. "Ours." The pack erupted in howls of celebration, and as Dominic pulled Elena into his arms and kissed her under the moonlight, she felt the final pieces of her broken heart seal together. The weeks that followed were a crash course in what it meant to be Luna. Margaret took Elena under her wing with the efficiency of a general preparing a soldier for war, except the battlefield was pack politics, and the weapons were diplomacy, strategy, and an iron will wrapped in velvet. "Being Luna isn't about being perfect," Margaret said one afternoon over tea, reviewing the pack's budget spreadsheets. "It's about being present, listening when pack members need to be heard, making hard decisions when Dominic can't see past his protectiveness. You balance him, dear. That's your greatest strength." Elena learned to mediate disputes between pack families, to organize community events, to understand the delicate balance of power between Blackwood and neighboring territories. It was exhausting and exhilarating. And for the first time in her life, Elena felt like she was exactly where she belonged. She also returned to her art with a vengeance. The mural she painted in the pack's community center became a gathering point, a sprawling depiction of Blackwood's history, from its founding to the present, with careful spaces left blank for future additions. Pack members would stop by to watch her work, and eventually some of the children asked if they could help. Elena found herself teaching impromptu art lessons, her laughter mixing with theirs as they created something beautiful together. Dominic gave her everything she needed: autonomy to make decisions, resources to pursue her passions, and most importantly, a voice in pack leadership that was respected and valued. He consulted her on major decisions, trusted her judgment, and never once made her feel like she was anything less than his equal partner. "You're making me look bad," Jenna joked one evening, watching Elena manage a contentious pack meeting with grace and steel. "The warriors are starting to ask why I'm not more like the Luna." "Tell them it's because you're terrifying in completely different ways," Elena shot back, grinning. On the eve of her due date, as winter snow began to fall outside their bedroom window, Dominic presented Elena with a small wooden box. Inside was a pendant carved from dark Blackwood oak, a wolf mid-leap, caught in perfect detail, suspended on a leather cord. The craftsmanship was exquisite, clearly hand-carved with painstaking care. "I made it," Dominic admitted, looking almost shy. "I wanted you to have something that symbolized your place here, not as someone I rescued, but as my mate, my Luna, the mother of my child. You're woven into this pack now, Elena. Into this land. Into me. Permanently." Elena's hands trembled as she lifted the pendant from the box. "It's beautiful." He fastened it around her neck, the weight of it settling above her heart. "I've been thinking about names," he said quietly, his hand coming to rest on her belly where their daughter moved restlessly. "What do you think about Cassidy? For my sister. And Elena for her middle name. Cassidy Elena Hale." Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. "She would be honored. Your sister, I mean. To know you never forgot her." "I think she'd be happy," Dominic murmured, "that something good came from the pain. That I found you because I understood what she went through." They sat together in the window seat, watching snow fall over Blackwood Territory, talking about the future they were building. The nursery was ready, painted in soft yellows and greens, filled with hand-carved furniture and gifts from pack members. Dr. Chen had assured them everything was progressing perfectly. In a matter of days, maybe hours, their daughter would arrive. "Are you scared?" Dominic asked. Elena considered the question. A year ago, she would have been terrified of childbirth, of motherhood, of the vulnerability that came with loving something so completely. But now, surrounded by pack and protection and a mate who'd fought for her freedom, fear felt like a distant memory. "No," she said softly, her hand covering his where it rested on her belly. "I'm not afraid anymore." Dominic pressed a kiss to her temple, and Elena closed her eyes, breathing in the scent of pine and snow and home. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The first snow fell exactly 1 year after Elena had collapsed on Blackwood Territory, fat flakes drifting past the bedroom windows like memories made tangible. Elena woke at dawn to the familiar tightening across her belly, but this time it didn't fade. This time it built, wave after wave, until she gripped Dominic's arm hard enough to leave marks. "It's time," she breathed. Dominic was on his feet in seconds, his wolf flashing in his eyes as years of alpha composure shattered into barely controlled panic. "Dr. Chen. I need to call Dr. Chen, and Jenna, and Dominic." Elena caught his hand, squeezing through another contraction. "Breathe." He laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. "I'm not the one about to—" He stopped, looked at her face, and visibly centered himself. "Right. Breathing. I can do that." Dr. Chen arrived within minutes, her emergency kit all ready in hand, and transformed the bedroom into a delivery room with practiced efficiency. Margaret appeared shortly after, taking up position at Elena's other side, murmuring encouragement in the same voice she'd probably used when Dominic was born. The labor was long and brutal, and nothing like the peaceful births Elena had imagined. She screamed, she cursed, she threatened to kick Dominic if he said, "You're doing great," one more time. But through it all, he never left her side, his hand anchoring hers, his presence a solid wall she could lean against when the pain became too much. "One more push," Dr. Chen said, and Elena found strength she didn't know she had left. The baby's first cry split the air like a wolf's howl, strong and furious, and absolutely perfect. "It's a girl," Dr. Chen announced, laughing through tears as she placed the squirming, red-faced infant on Elena's chest. "A healthy, beautiful girl." Elena looked down at her daughter, impossibly small, with a dusting of dark hair and eyes that flashed molten gold before settling into deep brown. An alpha's daughter, marked by power from her first breath. "Hello, Cassidy," Elena whispered, her voice breaking. "We've been waiting for you." Dominic's hand trembled as he touched his daughter's tiny fist, and when Cassidy's fingers closed around his, something in his expression cracked open, wonder and terror and love so fierce it made Elena's heart ache. "She's perfect," he breathed. "She's absolutely perfect." The pack celebration that followed was unlike anything Elena had experienced. Wolves came from across Blackwood Territory and beyond, bringing gifts and blessings and howling their joy until the forest echoed with the sound. Cassidy Elena Hale was passed from arms to arms, examined by elders who proclaimed her strong, blessed by the pack's shaman, and welcomed into the family with ancient words that made Elena's wolf sing with belonging. Margaret held her granddaughter with tears streaming down her face, and when she looked at Elena, the gratitude in her eyes needed no translation. "You brought him back to life," she said softly. "I thought I'd lost my son when Cassidy died. But you gave him something to fight for again." "He saved me first," Elena replied, and meant it with every fiber of her being. Weeks later, when Cassidy was sleeping through most of the night and Elena could walk without wincing, Dominic suggested a walk. They bundled Cassidy against Elena's chest in a wrap that kept her warm and close, and set out into the winter forest. Elena knew where they were going before Dominic said anything, the border where they'd first met, marked by ancient stones and the memory of desperation. Snow fell around them as they stood at the exact spot where Elena had collapsed a year ago. She could still remember the terror, the certainty that she was dying, the moment Dominic's arms had caught her and changed everything. "A year ago, I thought I was dying," Elena said quietly, looking up at her mate. "I thought I'd reached the end, that there was nothing left but cold and darkness and fear." Dominic pulled her close, careful of Cassidy sleeping between them. "And now? Now I'm more alive than I ever imagined possible." She touched the mate mark on his throat, feeling their bond pulse warm and certain. "I have a pack, a purpose, a family. I have you. I have her." She pressed her hand over Cassidy's tiny back. "I have a future I never believed I deserved." "You gave me a reason to believe in fate again," Dominic murmured against her hair. "You and Cassidy. You're my redemption. The proof that something good can come from the worst pain. that we can heal, even when we think we're too broken. They stood there until the snow accumulated on their shoulders, and Cassidy stirred, making soft noises that meant she'd be hungry soon. Then they walked back together, leaving footprints in the snow that would be covered by morning, but would never truly fade. The full moon rose on Cassidy's 6th-week celebration, and the entire pack gathered in the ceremonial grounds for the traditional presentation. Elena stood on the Alpha's platform beside Dominic, their daughter cradled in her arms, and looked out at the sea of faces that had become her family. A year ago, she'd been a rogue, broken, desperate, alone. Now she was Luna, and the weight of that responsibility no longer terrified her. She'd earned her place through survival and strength, through choosing to trust when trust seemed impossible, through standing beside her mate and claiming her own power. Dominic raised his hand, and the pack fell silent. Tonight we celebrate not just the birth of my daughter, but the strength of the woman who brought her into this world. His voice carried across the grounds with alpha authority, but when he looked at Elena, his expression softened into something private and profound. Luna Elena has shown us what it means to survive, to heal, and to transform pain into purpose. She is the heart of this pack, and I am honored to stand beside her. The pack howled in agreement, and Elena's wolf, fully healed, fully powerful, rose to join them. She tipped her head back and let her voice blend with theirs, a song of unity and belonging that echoed through the forest. Cassidy woke at the sound, her eyes flashing gold as her wolf recognized the pack's call. She didn't cry, just looked around with solemn awareness that seemed far too ancient for an infant. Elena looked down at her daughter and whispered words meant only for her. "You'll never know the fear I knew. You'll never wonder if you're worthy of love or protection or belonging. You'll only know strength and safety. You'll only know pack and home." Dominic's arm came around her waist, and Elena leaned into him, breathing in the scent of pine and snow and family. They had saved each other, that much was true. She'd given him purpose, and he'd given her sanctuary. She'd taught him to trust again, and he'd shown her she was worth fighting for. But more than that, they'd built something new from the ruins of their pasts, a legacy not of survival, but of thriving. A family forged in collapse and tempered in fire, now standing unshakable. The moon shone down on Blackwood Territory, silver light illuminating the pack as they celebrated under the stars. And Elena Morrison Hale, once a rogue who thought she'd die alone in the snow, stood at the center of it all, Luna, mother, mate, and finally, irrevocably, home. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next upload. I'd also love to hear your thoughts. Tell me in the comments what you think about this story and where you're watching from. Your support means a lot and helps us keep creating more stories like this. Until next time, stay safe, stay inspired.